there is a new scheme for a scrutiny assessment, which is proposed in the finance bill 2018. In order to impart greater efficiency, transparency and accountability, it is proposed to amend the existing provisions of section 143 from 143, whereby subsection 3A is proposed to be inserted, enabling the central government to prescribe a new scheme of assessment of conducting the scrutiny assessment. These three objectives of efficiency, transparency and accountability are sought to be achieved by eliminating interface between the assessing officer and the taxpayer to the extent it is technologically feasible. So, it is in a sense pointing towards e-assessments, then optimizing utilization of resources, then it says introducing team based assessment with dynamic jurisdiction. So, this is a significant shift in the way the assessments are going to happen going forward, because the locational assessing officer who is holding jurisdiction over the location of the assessee may not be alone or may not himself be doing the assessment, and it may be some other officer who may take over the assessment or a team of assessing officer who may take over the assessment of the assessee. Pardon? All assessment under section 140, this new scheme of scrutiny would be for the purpose of subsection assessment under section 3, scrutiny assessment under subsection 3 of section 143.
So it will not be applicable to searches?
For 143.
Okay, and it will be mandatory?
It will be mandatory.
Thank you.
As you said, mandatory, you see there was who would be actually carrying out the assessment. You see, what would happen is, say for instance, there is a company who is filing its return in Chandigarh, and Chandigarh's assessing officer possibly would be having jurisdiction over the location. Now, since the jurisdiction is going to be dynamic and it is going to be team based, depending upon the availability of resources and specialization and skills of the officers involved, it may happen that officers sitting in Bangalore or Delhi may also be undertaking some part of assessment together, or some other officer may be taking the taking over the assessment. Now, the contours of this new scrutiny assessment process is yet to be notified. So, this is the notification as it is provided in the finance bill should be coming before 31/3/2020. So, it says that no notification shall be coming after 31/3/2020. So, for the purpose of new scheme, there is subsection 3B further provides that the central government, for the purpose of giving effect to the new assessment of scheme, may by notification in the official gazette also direct that any provision of the act relating to the assessment shall not apply or shall apply with the exception or modification or adoption as the case may be.
This is again in the realm of speculation of how this will actually pan out, because if you are assessed in Delhi, whether an officer in Chennai or Bangalore will have jurisdiction over you to issue notice, that the law will provide that
those guidance would come.
You like is saying team based dynamic jurisdiction. So, you may have a team of officers having concurrent jurisdiction, either of them can send you a notice, but this is meant to be done remotely through email, through e-assessment. I think so, therefore, we will have to wait for the features to be described by the government in the proposed notification. Today we don't know that if you are in Delhi, an assessment is done in by the officer in Bengaluru, whether your appeal goes to Bengaluru or it goes to the officer in Delhi. For exercise of the revisionary jurisdiction, whether the commissioner in Bengaluru or the commissioner in Delhi will have jurisdiction, these are open questions. I think they will ultimately get resolved and cleared once the government brings the notification. But I think more importantly, I think we will take advantage of the presence of Mr. Kesar Shamim, former Chief Commissioner here. I don't know if you all recently read an article in the Economic Times by another former Chief Commissioner, Mr. Hardyal Singh. What he mentioned was, what is required is not changes in the law, what is required is actually an attitudinal change in the administration of the tax department, irrespective whether it is done through physical assessment or e-assessment by the officer at Delhi or Chennai or Bangalore or wherever. What he mentioned, and I think that's an important point that the government needs to address, that with so many regulatory agencies breathing down the neck of the assessing officer, the vigilance, the departmental audit, the CAG audit and so on, he said that one does not expect any change in the mindset of the officers. Whether you do an e-assessment, there is no physical interface between the taxpayer and the tax gatherer. I think what is important is to address this particular issue so that you have judicious assessments of your actual income. I think that's, according to me, the most important point that needs to be addressed in order to reduce the number of litigation, the controversies that are going on between the assessees and the tax department. So would you like to comment on this? Can we have the mic here, please?
I think with a similar thought, the provisions relating to DRP were brought in. It was thought that 3 senior commissioner level officers sitting together would be able to take very judicious views on subjects which a single commissioner or a single officer may not like to take. But we all know what happened in the process. The 3 learned gentlemen sitting together, I mean, with due apologies, I don't think ever decided anything very judiciously. And most of the time, the decisions were very much pro-revenue and against the assessees. So now, since I'm on the other side of the table, I can speak more honestly and frankly. I think there is a total distrust in the system of tax administration, like any other dealing with the government, whether it relates to contracts or tenders or whatever it is. So there is always a feeling that something underhand is going on all the time. And to overcome that situation, perhaps this dynamic jurisdiction is being planned. Having almost 40 years of experience in the IRS and in the income tax department, I feel that this is a very tall order, a very long shot. How the notifications are going to define how the assessments are going to be made in future, I think it's a big question mark. There'll be so many things to be sorted out. To me, sitting here, it seems very, very difficult task to achieve. The idea is only to create a distance between the assessee and the assessing officer. When there are more than one people sitting to decide an assessment, it becomes very, very difficult. Nobody wants to bell the cat, nobody wants to take a decision, and they take pro-revenue decisions. So I think once the scheme comes into operation, you can expect very hard-hitting, over-pitched assessments. And the learned gentleman sitting here should ponder over it. It's a very, very serious kind of a matter. And because how much, after all, are you going to ask and answer through emails? When you are talking to somebody across the table, it's much easier to bring around your point of view. When you're writing, how are you going to write? How many times are you going to explain, no, what you are understanding is not right, this is my case? How much of evidence are you going to produce and send it through email? So it's a very, very tall order. I think it may be very disruptive to start with. There'll be a lot of teething problems for which all of us have to be prepared.
You see, the contours are, as I said, not yet out. But when it says team-based dynamic jurisdiction, so it can take any shape, any form. There might be more than one officers looking at the tax assessment together. Yes, when it says team-based, it has to be plural. It is indicating toward the pluralistic approach. There are going to be more than one officers.
No, but you see, like if there is a team which has jurisdiction over you, assuming this is the notification, then every team has access to the notice sent out, every team member, and to the reply given. Now assume Neeraj sent out the first notice and I am to send out the second notice in your order of preference, that it should be sequential. I would definitely need to know what Neeraj sent out, what is the reply you gave before I send out the second notice. So technically I am also up to speed with what is going on in that file. Ultimately, no, ultimately it's a team based assessment, it is the collective responsibility of all of them.